The marker hit the whiteboard with a force that made the entire room flinch. Victoria Chen didn't apologize. She never did. 20 engineers sat frozen as she circled the failed equation in angry red strokes, her hand trembling not from age, but from rage barely contained. 3 days, $3 million in consulting fees, and this is what I get. Her voice cracked on the last word, 58 years of building this empire, threatening to crumble in 72 hours. Then the door creaked open. A janitor walked in, and everything changed in ways no one saw coming. Before we begin, tell me what city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story has traveled. Victoria Chen's fingers were white against the edge of the conference table, not from gripping too hard, from holding back. "Someone say something," she said quietly, dangerously quiet. No one did. The LED screens behind her told the story her team couldn't. Red lines cascading like blood from a wound. Error rates climbing. System failures spreading through the code like cancer through healthy tissue. Apex Systems' entire AI infrastructure was collapsing, and the Defense Department's patience was collapsing with it. "Dr. Morrison." Her voice cut through the silence like a scalpel. "You've had 3 days. What do you have to show for it?" James Morrison, PhD from Caltech. 20 years of AI research cleared his throat. "The neural network is encountering unexpected resistance in the decision tree. We've tried recalibrating the weighted nodes, but nothing works." Victoria finished his sentence. She did that when she was done being patient. 72 hours. That's what Admiral Patterson gave us. 72 hours to fix a system we promised would revolutionize military logistics, or we lose a $100 million contract. She turned to face them fully now. Her suit was impeccable. Her hair pulled back so tight it must have hurt. Everything about Victoria Chen was controlled, measured, deliberate, except her eyes. Those betrayed her. Fear. "Do you know what happens when we lose that contract?" She didn't wait for an answer. "We lose the company, my company, the company I built from nothing when every venture capitalist in Silicon Valley told me a woman my age should retire gracefully." Sarah Kim, her VP of Operations, and the only other woman in the room, spoke up. "Victoria, we're doing everything. Everything isn't enough." Victoria's voice cracked. Just slightly. Just enough for everyone to hear the woman behind the armor. "I didn't claw my way through 40 years of being underestimated to fail now. Not because of a code error. Not because—" Her phone buzzed. She glanced down. A message from her daughter. "Mom, you promised you'd call. Grace is asking about Grandma again." Victoria's jaw tightened. She shoved the phone into her pocket. "Everyone out. Figure it out. I don't care how. Just fix it." They fled like students escaping detention, all except Sarah, who lingered near the door. "You should go home," Sarah said gently. "See Grace. She's 8 now. They remember when you're not there." "I'll be there when I save their inheritance," Victoria snapped. Then softer. "I'm sorry. I know." Sarah gave her a small, sad smile. "But Victoria, when's the last time you asked for help?" The door closed before Victoria could answer, because she didn't have one. The offices of Apex Systems were a monument to success. Glass and steel, and views of downtown Seattle that cost more per square foot than most people earned in a month. Victoria had designed it that way. Proof. Evidence. A middle finger to every person who'd ever doubted her. But tonight, at 11:47 p.m., it felt like a museum. Beautiful and empty and echoing with the ghosts of better days. Victoria stood alone in the observation deck, looking down at the testing lab. A handful of engineers were still there, hunched over keyboards, surrounded by empty energy drink cans and cold pizza. Trying. Failing. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass. When did it get this hard, she wondered. When did I stop knowing what to do? Her phone buzzed again. Her daughter. Again. This time Victoria answered. "Hi, sweetheart." "Mom." "You actually picked up." The joy in her daughter Amy's voice was both beautiful and devastating. Grace wanted to say goodnight. Hold on. Shuffling sounds. Shuffling. Then a smaller voice, sleep-soft and innocent. "Grandma." Victoria's eyes burned. "Hi, baby girl." "Mommy says you're saving the world again. Is it hard?" "Yes, honey, it's very hard. You should get a helper, like Superman has Robin." Victoria laughed, but it came out wrong. Hollow. "I don't think it works that way, sweetheart. Why not everyone needs help sometimes, even superheroes?" Grace time for bed. Amy's voice in the background, then closer. "Mom, I mean it. Come to dinner this weekend. You look exhausted in your photos." "I don't have photos." "You're all over the business news. The board meeting last month, you look 10 years older." Victoria flinched. "I'm handling it." "You're drowning." Amy's voice was soft but firm. "The way you talk to someone you love who refuses to admit they're in pain. And you're too stubborn to ask for a life preserver." They talked for 5 more minutes. "Good night. I love you. Please take care of yourself." Promises Victoria knew she wouldn't keep. When she hung up, the silence felt heavier than before. Marcus Hayes pushed his cleaning cart through the executive floor with the efficiency of someone who'd perfected invisibility. Gray uniform, worn sneakers, earbuds, and though only one actually played music. The other was just for show, a polite barrier that said, "I'm here, but not really here, so don't worry about me." 52 years old, widower, single father to Sophie, his 8-year-old daughter who believed her dad was the smartest person in the world, even if the world disagreed. He'd worked the night shift at Apex Systems for 3 years now. Came in at 11 p.m., left at 7 a.m., just in time to wake Sophie and get her ready for school. The hours were hell on his body, but heaven for his budget. Night differential pay, overtime. And most importantly, Sophie never had to know her dad was just a janitor. Though he wasn't. Not really. Marcus Hayes had a PhD-level understanding of artificial intelligence and machine learning. He'd been 2 semesters away from his doctorate at MIT when his wife Elena was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. 28 years old. No insurance. No time. He'd dropped out to care for her. Worked 3 jobs to pay for treatments that didn't work. Held her hand when she died. Held their newborn daughter when the grief felt like drowning. And now, here he was 13 years later, pushing a mop through hallways designed by architects who'd never had to choose between rent and dinner. He didn't regret it. But some nights like tonight, the weight of what he'd given up felt heavy. Marcus rounded the corner to the executive conference room. The lights were still on, which was unusual. The meetings usually ended by 9 p.m. He peered through the glass. Empty now. But the whiteboards? Oh, the whiteboards were full. Equations, algorithms, neural network architecture diagrams. And in the center, circled in red marker with angry slashes through it, a problem. Marcus set his mop down, stepped closer. He recognized the structure immediately. A decision tree optimization problem. They were trying to minimize error rates in a predictive system, probably for real-time logistics or resource allocation. Military contract, he guessed, based on the security clearance notices posted outside. But they'd made a fundamental mistake. "They're using linear regression on exponential growth," he muttered to himself. "No wonder it's failing." His fingers itched, the same way they used to in grad school when he'd see a problem he knew he could solve. Back when solving problems mattered. Back when people listened. He pulled out a cloth to wipe the board clean. That was his job. Clean up after smarter people. Then he stopped. What if just once he didn't clean it? What if he fixed it instead? Marcus glanced at the door. Empty hallway. Security cameras weren't pointed at the boards, just at the exits. No one would know, unless it worked. He grabbed a red marker from the tray. His hand was shaking from excitement or fear, he wasn't sure, and he began to write. Not much, just a small adjustment. Swap the regression model for a sigmoid function. Redistribute the weighted nodes. Add a feedback loop to account for temporal decay. 5 minutes of work. 13 years of knowledge. When he stepped back, the solution looked so obvious, he wondered how 20 engineers had missed it. Then he remembered, because they weren't looking at it the way he was. They were looking at it like a problem to be conquered. He was looking at it like a system to be understood. There's a difference. Marcus wiped his hands on his uniform, suddenly aware of what he'd done. He'd just vandalized a corporate whiteboard. Could probably be fired for that. Better clean up before what? The voice came from behind him. Cold, sharp, unmistakably feminine. Marcus spun around. Victoria Chen stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes locked on the whiteboard, then on him. "You're the night janitor," she said. Not a question. "Yes, ma'am. Marcus Hayes. I was just cleaning and I noticed—" "You noticed $100 million algorithm was broken, and you fixed it." Her voice was flat, unreadable. Marcus's heart hammered. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have touched it. I'll wipe it clean right now." "Don't." She stepped into the room. "Don't you dare touch that board." She pulled out her tablet, snapped a photo of his corrections, and began typing rapidly. Marcus stood frozen, unsure if he should run or stay. 60 seconds passed. Victoria's eyes widened. "Run the simulation," she muttered to herself, fingers flying across the screen. The tablet beeped. Numbers cascaded. Green bars filled the screen where red ones had been. She looked up at Marcus, really looked at him, like he was a person, not furniture. Error reduction 63%. Processing speed increase 41%. You just solved a problem 20 engineers couldn't crack in 3 days. Marcus didn't know what to say. Victoria's expression shifted. Not quite a smile. Something more complicated. Relief mixed with disbelief, mixed with something that looked almost like anger. "Who are you?" she asked quietly. I'm just the janitor." Janitors don't optimize neural networks. "I used to study this stuff, long time ago, MIT, before—" He stopped himself. She didn't need his life story. But Victoria was already pulling up something on her tablet. Marcus Hayes, night shift maintenance, 3 years at Apex. Before that, custodial services at tech startups. Before that— She paused. Before that, nothing. No employment history. No educational records in our system. "I dropped out. Had to take care of my wife. She died. I have a daughter. Needed steady work." The words came out mechanical. He'd said them so many times they'd lost their weight. But Victoria heard them. Really heard them. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "How old's your daughter?" 8. "Same as my granddaughter." Something flickered across her face. Regret, maybe. Or recognition. "What's her name?" "Sophie." "And she knows you work here?" "She knows I work nights." "Doesn't know doing what?" Victoria nodded slowly. Then she did something Marcus didn't expect. She sat down in one of the expensive leather chairs. Gestured for him to sit too. He didn't. "Mr. Hayes, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Okay." "Can you do that again?" "Look at another problem and solve it." Marcus hesitated. "Depends on the problem." Defense logistics optimization. Real-time resource allocation across multiple theaters of operation. The contract that depends on it is worth $100 million, and it's due in— She checked her watch. 68 hours. "That's what this is for. That's what everything is for." Marcus looked at the whiteboard, at the equations he'd corrected, at the woman who'd built a company from nothing and was now asking a janitor for help. I don't have security clearance, he said quietly. I can get you clearance. I don't have credentials. You have results. Results matter more. Your team won't. My team just failed. You didn't. Victoria stood up. I'm not asking you to join the company, Mr. Hayes. I'm asking you to help me save it. Consultant basis. Name your price. Marcus's mind raced. Money. Real money. Sophie's college fund. Maybe even move out of their one-bedroom apartment. Maybe I need to be home by 7 a.m., he said. My daughter. I get her ready for school. Victoria's expression softened. Just slightly. Then we'll work around your schedule. And if I can't solve it, if tonight was just luck, then you'll have tried, which is more than I can say for most people. She extended her hand. Marcus looked at it, at her, at the whiteboard covered in his handwriting, and he shook it. One condition, he said. Name it. No one can know I'm the janitor, not until we see if this works. I don't want Sophie thinking... He paused. I don't want her embarrassed if I fail. Victoria's eyes held his. Deal. But Mr. Hayes... Yes. Stop calling yourself just anything. You just saved my company's future. That makes you anything but just. At 2:17 a.m., Marcus stood in front of a different whiteboard. This one in a private conference room Victoria had cleared of all personnel. Just the two of them. The problem, and 6 decades of combined life experience that neither had expected to share. Start from the beginning, Victoria said, handing him a marker. Explain it to me like I'm your daughter. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You have an MBA from Stanford and 40 years running tech companies. And right now, I need to understand why my experts failed. So explain it like I'm 8. Marcus smiled. First time, all night. Okay. Imagine you're trying to teach a robot to pack a school lunch. I'm listening. Your engineers taught the robot rules. Sandwich goes in first, then juice box, then cookies. But they taught it to follow the same order every time, no matter what. Linear thinking. Exactly. But real life isn't linear. Sometimes the juice box leaks. Sometimes there's no room for cookies. Sometimes the kid's allergic to peanut butter, and you have to adjust everything. Victoria nodded slowly. So the system can't adapt. Right. What I did was teach the robot to think more like a parent. Look at the whole situation. Adjust. Learn from mistakes. That's the sigmoid function it allows for growth, adaptation, failure, and correction. And the feedback loop. That's how parents get better at packing lunches. We remember what worked yesterday, what didn't. We improve. Victoria was quiet. Then, my daughter says I don't ask for help. Marcus looked up, surprised by the shift. Sorry, Victoria said quickly. That's not relevant. No, it's... Marcus set the marker down. I spent 13 years not asking for help, not because I didn't need it, because I thought needing help meant I'd failed. And now I know that asking for help is just another kind of strength. Their eyes met. Two people from completely different worlds, connected by the same stubborn pride and the same hard-earned wisdom. Tell me about Sophie, Victoria said suddenly. Why? Because right now she's the only thing keeping you here at 2 a.m. helping a stranger. I want to know what drives that. Marcus smiled. She wants to be a scientist. Asks me questions I can't answer anymore. Like how black holes work. Why stars die. Whether AI can love. Can it? Not the way we do. But Sophie thinks it should. She says if we're teaching machines to think, we should teach them to care. Victoria's throat tightened. She sounds extraordinary. She is. She doesn't know. He stopped. That you're brilliant, Victoria finished quietly. That you gave up everything for her. That her mom would be proud of her. That's what she really wants to know. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that happens when two people realize they've been carrying the same weight just in different ways. My granddaughter asked me tonight if superheroes need help, Victoria said finally. I told her it doesn't work that way. Maybe it should. Maybe you're right. Victoria stood up, walked to the window. The city lights blinked like stars reflected in water. I built this company to prove I could, she said quietly. To prove that a woman my age could compete, could win, could matter. She turned back to him. But somewhere along the way, I forgot why I started. I forgot that building something isn't just about being the strongest. It's about being strong enough to let other people help you build. Marcus joined her at the window. Sophie drew me a picture last week, me in a lab coat, her in a spacesuit standing on Mars. She titled it, Team Hayes Saves the Universe. Smart kid. She knows we're stronger together. He looked at Victoria. Even when I forget. Victoria smiled, a real smile, the kind that came from somewhere deep and true. Team Hayes, she repeated. I like that. We could use a Team Chen too. Or maybe, Victoria met his eyes. Maybe we could just be a team, no labels, just people trying to save something worth saving. Marcus extended his hand again. This time it wasn't a business deal. It was a promise. Let's save your company, Victoria. She shook his hand. Let's save what matters, Marcus. And at 2:43 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, while the rest of Seattle slept, two people who had every reason to be enemies became something else entirely. They became hope. The coffee was terrible, but Marcus drank it anyway. 4 a.m. coffee always tasted like regret and determination, mixed in equal parts. Victoria sat across from him, her tablet glowing between them like a campfire. They'd been working for nearly 2 hours straight, and Marcus could see the exhaustion creeping into her face. Not the kind that comes from one late night, the kind that's been building for years. You should go home, he said. So should you. I will. At 7, like always. Victoria looked up from the screen. You never miss a morning with her, do you? Not once in 8 years. Marcus set his cup down. After Elena died, I made Sophie a promise. Every morning I'd be there. Make her breakfast, braid her hair, walk her to the bus. Doesn't matter how tired I am. That's why you work nights. That's why I do everything. Victoria was quiet for a moment, then said, I missed my daughter's first words. Too busy with a product launch in Tokyo. The confession hung between them. Amy doesn't remember, Victoria continued. But I do. Her nanny called me. Said Amy was saying mama over and over. Asked if I wanted to video chat. I said I'd call back in an hour. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. The launch went long. By the time I called, Amy was asleep. She never said it the same way again. Marcus didn't offer empty comfort. He just nodded. Does Sophie know? Victoria asked. About MIT, about who you used to be. She knows her mom died. Knows I work hard so we can be together. That's enough. Is it? The question cut deeper than Victoria probably intended. I tell myself it is, Marcus said quietly. I tell myself she's happy and healthy, and that's what matters. But sometimes, he stopped. Sometimes what? Sometimes I wonder if I'm teaching her the wrong lesson. That you have to give up your dreams to take care of people you love. Victoria reached across the table. Not quite touching his hand, but close enough that the gesture meant something. You're teaching her that love matters more than credentials, she said. That's not the wrong lesson, Marcus. That's the only lesson that matters. His throat tightened. Then why does it feel like I'm lying to her? Because you are. Just not about what you think. He looked up confused. You're lying about who you are, Victoria explained. You're telling her you're just a night shift worker when you're actually brilliant. You're hiding your light because you think it makes her life easier. But Marcus, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Kids don't need parents who are perfect. They need parents who are real." Before Marcus could respond, the door burst open. Sarah Kim stood there, coffee in one hand and a laptop in the other, looking like she'd been dragged through a nightmare. "Victoria, we have a problem." She stopped when she saw Marcus. "Oh, I didn't know you were meeting with—" "This is Marcus Hayes," Victoria said smoothly. "Consultant. He's helping with the Defense Department contract." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "At 4 in the morning. The deadline doesn't care what time it is." Sarah glanced at Marcus, then back at Victoria. "Can I speak with you privately?" Victoria stood. "Give me 5 minutes." The women stepped into the hallway. Marcus tried not to listen, but voices carried. "That's the janitor." Sarah's voice was sharp with disbelief. "That's the man who solved our algorithm problem in 5 minutes." "Victoria, you can't be serious. The board will thank me when we deliver the contract on time. And if this blows up in your face, then it blows up. But at least I'll have tried something different." Silence. Then Sarah, quieter now. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" "Trying to save everyone by yourself. You brought in a janitor instead of asking your actual team for help." "My actual team failed." "Because you don't trust them. Because you've spent so long being the only woman in the room that you forgot how to share the room with anyone." Marcus heard Victoria's sharp intake of breath. "That's not fair," Victoria said. "Isn't it? When's the last time you delegated something important? When's the last time you said, 'I need help,' without turning it into a test?" The silence that followed felt heavy even from inside the room. When Victoria came back, her face was carefully neutral. But Marcus saw the cracks. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Fine. Sarah's just worried." "About me." "About me." Victoria sat down heavily. "She thinks I'm self-destructing, using you as a way to avoid asking my actual team for help." Marcus considered that. "Is she right?" Victoria's jaw tightened. "I don't know anymore." The honesty hit him like a punch. "You want me to leave," Marcus said. It wasn't a question. "No, I want you to help me figure out if I'm saving this company or just proving a point." Marcus leaned forward. "Can I tell you something my wife used to say?" Victoria nodded. Elena was a social worker, spent her whole career helping people who didn't want help, and she'd come home exhausted, crying sometimes, saying she was failing, that she couldn't save everyone. He paused. "I asked her once why she kept trying. You know what she said?" "What?" "She said, because the only failure that matters is not trying at all." Victoria's eyes glistened. "So, maybe you're not self-destructing," Marcus continued. "Maybe you're just trying, and maybe that scares people because they've gotten used to you having all the answers." "I don't have any answers anymore." "Good. That means you're finally asking the right questions." Victoria laughed then, a real laugh surprised out of her. "How are you this wise at 4 in the morning?" "Single-parent insomnia. You'd be amazed what you learn at 3 a.m. when your kid has nightmares." "Does Sophie have nightmares?" "Used to. About her mom. About being alone." Marcus's voice softened. "We'd sit on the couch and I'd make up stories. Adventures where the scared little girl becomes the hero. Where the monsters turn out to be friends. Where the ending is always what? Always worth the journey." Victoria set her tablet down. "Tell me one." "What?" "Tell me one of Sophie's stories. I want to hear it." Marcus almost said no. But something in Victoria's face stopped him. The exhaustion, the vulnerability, the desperate need for something that wasn't about algorithms and contracts and proving herself. "Okay, this one's called The Queen and the Cleaner." Victoria smiled. Subtle. "Sophie's 8. Subtle isn't her strong suit." He began. "Once upon a time there was a queen who built a castle so tall it touched the clouds. Everyone said it was the most beautiful castle in the world, the strongest, the most perfect." Marcus paused. But the queen was lonely, because she'd built the walls so high nobody could reach her anymore. "Sounds familiar?" Victoria murmured. One night, a cleaner came to sweep the castle floors. He was nobody special, just a man with a broom and a daughter waiting at home. But when he looked at the castle walls, he saw something the queen had missed. What? Cracks. Tiny ones. The kind you only see if you're looking from the bottom up instead of the top down. Victoria went very still. "The cleaner told the queen," Marcus continued, "and you know what she did? She fired him. She cried, because she'd spent so long trying to be strong that she'd forgotten strong things can still break, can still need repair." "How does it end?" Marcus met her eyes. "Sophie always asks me that too. Every time." "And what do you tell her?" "I tell her the queen and the cleaner fixed the cracks together, that the castle didn't fall, and that sometimes the best endings are the ones where people stop pretending they're perfect." Victoria's hand moved to her eyes, wiped them quickly. "I'm 58 years old," she said, voice thick. "I shouldn't be crying over a children's story." "It's not the story. It's everything else." "I'm so tired, Marcus. I know. I don't know how to stop being the queen." "Maybe you don't have to stop. Maybe you just need to let someone else into the castle." They sat in silence. Outside, the city was starting to wake. Early morning traffic, birds, the sound of the world continuing whether you were ready or not. Finally, Victoria spoke. "Will you come to the morning meeting? Present the solution yourself." Marcus's stomach dropped. "Victoria, I'm not asking you to do it alone. I'll be there. Sarah will be there. But Marcus, you need to be the one to explain it. Because if I present your work as mine, I'm proving everyone right. That I can't share credit. That I have to be the hero. Your team is going to eat me alive. Probably. But Sarah will stop them." Victoria almost smiled. "She's very protective, even when I don't deserve it." Marcus checked his watch. 5:30. An hour and a half until he had to be home. "One condition," he said. "You keep saying that. I get to call Sophie before we start. She wakes up early sometimes, likes to talk before school." Victoria pulled out her phone. "Use my office. It's private." "Thank you." As he stood to leave, Victoria said, "Marcus?" He turned. "Thank you for the story. For—" She hesitated. "For seeing the cracks." "Everyone has them, Victoria. The difference is whether you fix them or hide them." "Which do you do?" Marcus thought of Sophie. Of Elena. Of 13 years spent hiding who he was, so his daughter wouldn't see him as a failure. "I'm still figuring that out," he admitted. Victoria's office was everything Marcus expected. Chrome and glass, awards on the walls, photos of Victoria shaking hands with presidents and tech CEOs, and in the corner, almost hidden, a small frame with a child's drawing. He picked it up. A crayon sketch of 2 stick figures holding hands, Grandma and me. Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed. Sophie answered on the second ring. "Daddy!" Just hearing her voice made the exhaustion worth it. "Hey, sweetheart. You're up early. I had a dream about you. You were in a big tower helping a princess who forgot how to smile." Marcus almost dropped the phone. That's a very specific dream." "Was I right? Are you helping someone sad?" "Maybe. How'd you know?" "Because that's what you do, Daddy. You fix sad things." His throat closed up. "Baby, Is she nice? The sad person?" Yeah, she's very nice." "Then you should keep helping her. That's what heroes do." "Sophie, I'm not. You're my hero. That means you're everyone's hero. You just don't know it yet." Marcus sat down in Victoria's expensive chair and let himself feel it. The love, the fear, the overwhelming weight of being someone's entire world. "What if I mess up?" he asked quietly. "Then you'll fix it, like you always do." "What if people laugh at me?" "Then I'll come there and tell them they're being mean." Mrs. Peterson says bullies are just scared people in disguise. Marcus laughed. Mrs. Peterson is very smart. Not as smart as you, Daddy. Sophie. I gotta go. Molly's mom is here for carpool. But Daddy? Yeah. Make the princess smile today. Okay, everyone deserves to smile. The line went dead. Marcus sat there for a long moment, staring at the phone. Then at the drawing of Victoria's granddaughter. Then at his own reflection in the dark window. What am I doing, he thought. Playing consultant to a CEO when I can barely pay rent. Pretending I belong in this world when everyone knows I don't. But then he heard Sophie's voice in his head. You're my hero. And something shifted. Maybe he didn't need to belong. Maybe he just needed to show up. When Marcus returned to the conference room, Victoria wasn't alone anymore. Sarah was there along with 3 other people he didn't recognize. All of them looked exhausted. All of them looked skeptical. Everyone, this is Marcus Hayes, Victoria said. He's the consultant I mentioned. A man in his 40s with thinning hair and an expensive suit looked Marcus up and down. You're the one who solved the neural network problem. I suggested some adjustments, yes. Where'd you get your PhD? Marcus met his eyes. I didn't. The room went cold. You're kidding. The man turned to Victoria. You brought in someone without a doctorate to consult on a Defense Department contract. I brought in someone who could solve the problem, Richard. Credentials don't matter if the solution doesn't work. Credentials matter when we're billing the client, when we're defending our methodology, when we're trying to save the company. Richard, results matter more than resumes. Richard's face flushed. This is reckless. This is necessary. Sarah jumped in. Can we see the actual solution before we debate Marcus's qualifications? Marcus moved to the whiteboard. His hands were shaking slightly, but he forced them steady. Just talk, he told himself. Like you're explaining it to Sophie. Imagine you're teaching a child to ride a bike, he began. Richard groaned. Oh, here we go. Let him finish, Victoria said sharply. Marcus continued. You don't give the kid a manual with bike riding algorithms. You run beside them. You let them wobble. You catch them when they fall. You adjust based on what you see, not what you planned. He drew a simple diagram. That's what your current system is missing. Adaptability. You programmed it to follow rules perfectly. But real-world logistics is chaos. Weather changes. Supply lines break. Soldiers improvise. Your system needs to improvise too. That's what machine learning does, Richard interrupted. No. Machine learning teaches systems to recognize patterns in data. What I'm suggesting is teaching the system to recognize when the patterns don't apply anymore, when to break its own rules. Sarah leaned forward. That's actually brilliant. It's untested, Richard shot back. So was every innovation that ever mattered. Victoria stood up. Marcus, can you implement this? Not alone. I'd need your engineers. I'd need access to the existing codebase. I'd need... Done. Whatever you need. Richard slammed his hand on the table. Victoria, I'm formally objecting to this decision. For the record. Noted. For the record. And when it fails, then it fails with my name on it, not yours. Richard grabbed his laptop and stormed out. One of the other engineers followed him. The third, a young woman with purple-streaked hair, stayed behind. I'm Priya, she said, extending her hand to Marcus. And I think Richard's an idiot. When do we start? Marcus looked at Victoria. Victoria looked at her watch. You need to go home, she said to Marcus. Sophie's waiting. We're on a deadline. And burning you out before we even start won't help anyone. Go home. Be with your daughter. Come back tonight. We'll have the team ready. Marcus wanted to argue, but the truth was he was exhausted, and Sophie needed him. Thank you, he said quietly. As he gathered his things, Priya approached him. Can I ask you something? Sure. How'd you learn all this, the neural network stuff, the AI theory? Marcus hesitated, then decided truth was easier than lying. MIT. Long time ago. I dropped out before finishing. Why? Life happened. Priya nodded slowly. My mom dropped out of college when I was born. Spent 20 years as a receptionist. Finally went back at 45 and got her degree. She paused. She's a data scientist now. Says dropping out was the best thing that ever happened because it taught her what actually mattered. What's that? Not giving up. Just changing direction. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. Your mom sounds smart. She is, but she spent a long time thinking she wasn't, thinking the world saw her as less than because she didn't finish school on schedule. Priya met his eyes. Don't make her mistake, Marcus. Don't let other people's timelines define your worth. She walked away before he could respond. Marcus left the building as the sun was starting to rise. The city looked different in the early light. Softer. More forgiving. Like maybe there was room for people who didn't fit the expected mold. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Thank you for tonight, for the story, for the cracks. He typed back, thank you for letting me see the castle. Then he walked to the bus stop, exhausted and uncertain, and more alive than he'd felt in years. When Marcus got home, Sophie was waiting by the window. She saw him and her whole face lit up. Daddy, you're home. He scooped her up, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo. Did you help the princess? She asked. Marcus thought about Victoria, about the cracks in her castle, about the way she'd cried over a children's story. I tried, he said. Then it counts. They made pancakes together. Sophie talked about her upcoming science fair project, about how her friend Molly's parents were getting divorced and Molly was sad, about how Mrs. Peterson said sometimes families look different, but love stays the same. Do you think Mom would be proud of me? Sophie asked suddenly. Marcus's spatula froze mid-flip. What? My science project. Do you think Mom would like it? He knelt down so they were eye level. Baby, your mom would be so proud of you, she'd probably cry. Just like I do every time you bring home a drawing. You don't cry. I cry on the inside, where you can't see. Sophie studied his face. Are you sad, Daddy? No, sweetheart. I'm the opposite of sad. What's that? Marcus pulled her close. Grateful. I'm grateful I get to be your dad. She hugged him back fiercely, then pulled away and said, Daddy, yeah. When I grow up, I want to help sad people too, like you do. You already do, baby, every single day. After he dropped Sophie at school, Marcus didn't go home to sleep like he should have. Instead, he went to the public library, logged onto a computer, and started researching everything he'd missed in 13 years of being away from the field. Papers on advanced AI, new algorithms, recent breakthroughs. The library closed around him, and he barely noticed. Because for the first time in over a decade, Marcus Hayes wasn't just surviving. He was becoming. The library computer screen blurred in front of Marcus's eyes. He'd been reading for 6 hours straight, his back screaming from the cheap plastic chair, his head swimming with new concepts that built on foundations he'd laid 13 years ago. So much had changed, and yet the core principles remained the same. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria team meeting at 8 p.m. Can you make it? Marcus checked the time. 4:47 p.m. He had just enough time to pick up Sophie, make dinner, and get her settled with homework before Mrs. Chen from downstairs could come sit with her. He typed back, I'll be there. The response came immediately. Thank you. And Marcus, wear whatever you want. I'm done pretending credentials matter more than character. Marcus stared at that message for a long time. Then he saved all his research notes and headed home. Sophie was sitting on the front steps of their apartment building when he arrived, her backpack beside her, drawing something in her notebook. Hey baby, how was school? She looked up and Marcus's heart stopped. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying. Sophie, what happened? Nothing. That's not nothing on your face. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Molly said her dad works at a bank and makes lots of money, so I said my dad works at a tech company and he's really smart. And then she asked what you do there. Marcus's stomach dropped. What did you tell her? I said you were a consultant, because that's what you told me this morning. But then Molly asked what company, and I said Apex Systems, and she said her dad knows that company, and there's no consultant named Hayes. Sophie's voice cracked. Daddy, why did Molly's dad say you're just the janitor? Marcus knelt down in front of her, his knees protesting against the concrete. Sophie, did you lie to me? No, I mean... He struggled to find words. It's complicated. That's what adults say when they don't want to tell the truth. She was right. God, she was so right it hurt. Marcus sat down beside her on the steps. You're right. I'm sorry. I did lie to you. Not about being a consultant. That part's new. But about what I've been doing for the last 3 years. You've been cleaning toilets. The bluntness of it, the hurt in her voice, cut him deeper than any insult from Richard could have. Yeah, I have. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed. The words came out raw and honest. Because I thought if you knew what I really did, you'd think less of me, that I'd failed you. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Mrs. Peterson's husband is a janitor at our school. She says he's a hero because he makes sure we have a clean, safe place to learn. Marcus's throat tightened. And you always told me that all work is important work, that the people who clean and build and fix things are just as valuable as the people in fancy offices. Sophie looked at him with those impossibly wise 8-year-old eyes. So, were you lying then? Or are you lying now? He'd never been more proud of his daughter, and never felt more like a hypocrite. I wasn't lying then, he said quietly. I was lying to myself, telling myself that what I did didn't matter because it wasn't what I used to do, because I wasn't using the education I'd worked so hard for. But you are now. Using it. The consultant thing. Yeah, because I happened to be in the right place at the right time. Or because you're really smart and someone finally noticed. Marcus pulled her close. When did you get so wise? I've been practicing, for when I'm a scientist and have to explain hard things to people who don't understand. He laughed, but it came out shaky. Sophie, I need to tell you something. Okay. Tonight I have to go back to Apex, to help with a really big project. If it works, it might change things for us. I might be able to do consulting work permanently. Maybe even go back to school, finish what I started. And if it doesn't work, then I go back to janitorial work. And I keep trying. Because that's what we do in this family. We don't give up. Sophie nodded slowly. Then she said, Daddy, yeah. I don't care if you clean toilets or fix computers or become president. I just care that you're my dad. Marcus's eyes burned. How did I get so lucky? Mom picked good. Sophie smiled through her tears. That's what I tell people when they ask. I say my mom in heaven picked the best dad for me before she left. He held her while they both cried. Right there on the steps of their rundown apartment building, with neighbors walking past, and traffic honking, and the whole messy world continuing around them. Finally, Sophie pulled back and wiped her eyes. You should go get ready. Mrs. Chen makes really good dumplings, and I bet she'll teach me if I ask nice. You sure you're okay? I'm okay, but Daddy. Yeah, baby. Next time just tell me the truth, even if it's hard. I'm stronger than you think. Marcus kissed her forehead. You're the strongest person I know. At exactly 8 p.m., Marcus walked into the Apex Systems conference room wearing jeans, a button-down shirt Sophie had picked out 3 Christmases ago, and the kind of nervous energy that comes from knowing your entire future might hinge on the next few hours. Victoria was already there, along with Sarah Priya, and 4 other engineers Marcus didn't recognize. No Richard he noticed. Small mercies. Marcus. Victoria stood when she saw him. Something in her posture had shifted. She looked less like a CEO and more like a woman who'd finally stopped trying to hold up the sky by herself. Everyone, this is Marcus Hayes. He's the reason we're not all updating our resumes right now. A few nervous laughs. Marcus has a radical approach to our logistics problem, Victoria continued. And before anyone asks, no, he doesn't have a PhD. What he has is a fresh perspective and a solution that works. So I suggest we listen. One of the engineers, a man in his 30s with glasses and a coffee stain on his shirt, raised his hand. I'm David. Can I ask a potentially offensive question? Sure, Marcus said. Where have you been for the last decade? Because I've been following AI research since grad school and I've never heard your name. Marcus appreciated the directness. I dropped out of MIT 13 years ago. My wife was sick. I spent the next decade raising my daughter and working whatever jobs paid the bills. So you've been out of the field entirely? Professionally, yes. Personally, no. I read everything I could get my hands on, taught myself new frameworks, followed developments, just never had the opportunity to apply any of it. Another engineer spoke up, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and kind eyes. I'm Patricia. I've been in this industry for 30 years, and I can tell you that hands-on experience beats theoretical knowledge every time. If your solution works, Marcus, I don't care if you learned it from fortune cookies. That got bigger laughs. Priya jumped in. I ran the simulation using Marcus's adjustments. Error rate dropped 63%. Processing speed increased 41%. Whatever he's doing, it's working. David nodded slowly. Okay, I'm in. What do you need from us? Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. I need to understand your existing code base. I need someone who knows the Defense Department's requirements inside and out. And I need everyone to be honest when something I suggest won't work. I'm not here to be right. I'm here to solve the problem. That's the first time I've heard a consultant say that, Patricia said dryly. I'm not a consultant. I'm a janitor who happens to know some things about AI. The room went quiet. Then Patricia started clapping. Slowly at first, then Sarah joined, then Priya, then everyone else. Marcus felt his face heat. That's not necessary. Yes, it is, Patricia said. Because you just did something none of us have managed in 3 days. You told the truth without ego. That's rarer than you think. Victoria's eyes met his across the room. She didn't say anything, but Marcus saw the gratitude there, the relief, the beginning of something that looked like hope. All right, Marcus said, moving to the whiteboard. Let's save this company. They worked through the night. Marcus explaining concepts, the engineers implementing them, problems emerging and being solved in real time. It was messy and exhausting and exhilarating in a way Marcus hadn't felt since his MIT days. Around midnight, Patricia pulled him aside. Can I give you some unsolicited advice? She asked. Please. Whatever happens with this contract, don't disappear again. The field needs people like you. People who actually understand what these systems are supposed to do for real humans. I'm not sure I belong in the field anymore. I'm too far behind. Patricia laughed. Marcus, I have a PhD from Carnegie Mellon and 20 patents to my name. And you just taught me something I didn't know. You're not behind. You're just coming from a different direction. That's what my daughter said, sort of. Smart kid. She really is. Patricia studied him for a moment. You know what I see when I look at you? A guy who's in way over his head. A father who loves his kid enough to give up everything. And then found his way back anyway. That's not failure, Marcus. That's the opposite of failure. Before Marcus could respond, Priya called out, We've got a problem with the implementation. Marcus, can you look at this? He spent the next hour troubleshooting with Priya, their heads bent over her laptop trading ideas like tennis players volleying a ball. She was brilliant, he realized. The kind of brilliant that didn't need validation, just opportunity. How'd you get into this field? He asked during a brief lull. My mom. She's a data scientist. Spent years thinking she wasn't smart enough because she didn't have a degree. Then she went back to school and discovered she was smarter than half her professors. Priya smiled. She taught me that timing doesn't matter, just persistence. She sounds like someone I'd like to meet. She'd like you too. She has a thing for underdogs. At 2 a.m., Sarah brought in pizza and coffee. Everyone gathered around the conference table, too tired to sit anywhere else. Status check, Victoria said. Where are we? David spoke first. Core algorithm is implemented. We're running stress tests now. So far it's holding. Patricia added, I've been reviewing the Defense Department's requirements. Marcus's system meets or exceeds every benchmark. We might actually pull this off. Might. Victoria's eyebrow arched. Will, Patricia corrected. We will pull this off. Victoria turned to Marcus. You've been quiet. Just thinking. About all the things that had to go wrong for this to go right. If your team had solved the problem on their own, I'd still be mopping floors. If you hadn't walked in when you did, I'd have wiped the board clean. If Sophie hadn't asked me about heroes this morning, I might not have had the courage to come back. The room was silent. You believe in fate? Sarah asked quietly. I believe in showing up, Marcus said. And sometimes showing up is enough. Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her expression shifted. I need to take this. It's Admiral Patterson. She stepped into the hallway. Through the glass walls they could see her pacing, nodding, her face carefully neutral. That's either very good or very bad, David muttered. 2 minutes later, Victoria came back. Her face was unreadable. He wants a demonstration. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Here. The room erupted. Tomorrow, that's impossible. We're not ready. The system hasn't been fully tested. Victoria held up her hand. Silence fell immediately. He said if we can demonstrate a working prototype with measurable improvement over our previous model, he'll extend the deadline by 2 weeks and increase the contract value by 20%. And if we can't demonstrate it, Marcus asked. Then we're done. Contract terminated. Company reputation destroyed. Everything I've built for the last 40 years gone. No one spoke. Then Marcus said, What time do you need me here? Marcus, you don't have to. What time, Victoria? 8 a.m. To prep. But I'll be here. Sophie has a half day tomorrow anyway. Mrs. Chen can pick her up from school. Priya stood. I'll come in at 6. Run final diagnostics. Patricia nodded. Me too. David. Yeah, I'm in. One by one, every engineer in the room committed. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. Victoria's eyes glistened. Thank you. All of you. Sarah touched her arm gently. You're not alone anymore, Victoria. Stop acting like you are. After everyone left, Marcus found Victoria standing alone by the windows. The city sprawled below them, indifferent to their deadline, their fears, their hopes. You should go home, he said. So should you. I will. In a minute. They stood in companionable silence. Then Victoria said, I called my daughter tonight, before the Admiral called. Yeah? Told her about you, about Sophie, about how a janitor solved our biggest problem and reminded me what matters. What did she say? She cried. Said she'd been waiting years for me to admit I needed help. That she'd been terrified I'd work myself to death before I figured out that being strong doesn't mean being alone. Marcus nodded. Sophie told me today that she doesn't care what I do for work. She just cares that I'm her dad. Wise kid. She gets it from her mom. Victoria turned to look at him. Elena, that was her name. Yeah, she was a social worker, spent her whole life helping people who couldn't help themselves. She'd have liked you, I think. Why? Because underneath all the armor you're doing the same thing, trying to help people, just on a bigger scale. Victoria's breath hitched. I'm terrified, Marcus. Of the demonstration? Of failing? of proving everyone right who ever said I couldn't do this, that a woman my age should step aside for younger minds. You're 58, not dead. Tell that to the board. Richard's already started campaigning to replace me, says I'm making reckless decisions, bringing in unqualified personnel, risking everything on a janitor's hunch. Is he wrong? Victoria looked at him sharply, then laughed. Maybe, but I'd rather fail trying something new than succeed doing the same thing that's slowly killing me. That's not failure. That's bravery. Or stupidity. Sometimes they look the same. Victoria smiled. A real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. You know what Sophie told me when I met her? Marcus raised his eyebrows. You met Sophie? Briefly. This afternoon. She was waiting outside the building for you, very concerned that you were helping a sad princess. Marcus groaned. I'm sorry. She's very perceptive. She looked at me and said, You're the lady from Daddy's story, the one who forgot how to smile. Oh, God. And then she said, But don't worry. My daddy's really good at fixing sad things. Victoria's voice softened. She hugged me, Marcus. This tiny 8-year-old girl I'd never met just hugged me and said everything would be okay. Marcus felt his eyes burn. That sounds like Sophie. She also said I looked tired and should eat more vegetables. That surprised a laugh out of him. She's very concerned about nutrition. She's extraordinary. You raised someone extraordinary. Elena raised her. I just tried not to screw it up too badly. You're doing better than just not screwing up. Victoria turned back to the window. I missed so much of Amy's childhood. Work trips, late meetings, weekends spent reviewing contracts instead of attending recitals. And now Grace is 8, and I'm making the same mistakes with her. It's not too late. Isn't it? She barely knows me, calls Sarah Aunt Sarah with more warmth than she says Grandma. So change it. You're not dead yet, remember? Victoria laughed wetly. When did you become a therapist? Single parent support group, Tuesdays at the community center. You learn things. Like what? Like guilt is just love with nowhere to go, and regret is just a sign you're still capable of growth, and it's never too late to show up as long as you actually show up. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, If we pull this off tomorrow, if we actually demonstrate this system and save the company, when we pull it off, she corrected with a small smile. I'm making some changes. What kind of changes? The kind where I stop trying to be perfect and start trying to be present, where I delegate more, trust more, where I actually leave the office before midnight and have dinner with my granddaughter. Sounds revolutionary. It sounds terrifying. I don't know how to not be this person. The one who works around the clock. The one who can't let go. Marcus turned to face her fully. You want to know what I learned when Elena was dying? Victoria nodded. That holding on too tight doesn't keep people with you. It just exhausts you both. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open your hands and see what stays. And if everything falls, then you pick it up and try again, with help this time. Victoria reached out and squeezed his hand, just briefly, just enough to mean something. Thank you, Marcus, for tonight, for all of this. Thank you for seeing me, really seeing me. That's what happens when you stop looking down from the tower. You finally see who's been holding it up. They left together, exhaustion finally catching up with both of them. In the elevator, Victoria said, What are you going to tell Sophie about tomorrow? The truth, that I'm helping save a company, that it's scary and important and I might fail. And if you do fail, then I tried, and trying matters more than I used to think. The elevator doors opened. The lobby was empty except for a security guard who nodded at them. Marcus. Yeah. Whatever happens tomorrow, you've already changed everything. You know that, right? He didn't, not really. But he was starting to believe it might be true. "See you at 8 a.m., he said. "See you at 8. Marcus walked to the bus stop, his body screaming for sleep, his mind too wired to rest. He pulled out his phone and texted Sophie, even though she'd be asleep. "I love you, baby. Thank you for being brave enough to ask hard questions. You make me want to be braver too." The response came immediately. "Shouldn't she be asleep?" "Love you more, Daddy. Mrs. Chen let me stay up late. We made dumplings, and she told me about when she came to America with no money and built a whole life. She says you remind her of her husband. Strong because you have to be, not because you want to be." Marcus smiled through his exhaustion. "Tell Mrs. Chen thank you, and get some sleep. Big day tomorrow." "You too, Daddy. Go save the princess." As the bus rumbled through the empty streets, Marcus thought about castles and cracks and 8-year-old girls who understood the world better than most adults. He thought about Victoria crying over a children's story, about Patricia's kindness, about Priya's mother who went back to school at 45. He thought about showing up, about trying, about the courage it takes to let people see who you really are. And for the first time in 13 years, Marcus Hayes let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Marcus didn't sleep. He tried lying in his narrow bed, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a dragon if you squinted hard enough. Sophie had named it Gerald 2 years ago. Gerald, the ceiling dragon protector of people who were too worried to sleep. At 4 a.m. he gave up and made coffee. The apartment was quiet except for Sophie's soft breathing from the bedroom they shared. He'd given her the actual bed years ago, preferring the pull-out couch that groaned every time he moved. His hands shook as he poured the coffee. Not from nerves, from exhaustion mixed with adrenaline, mixed with the terrifying possibility that today might actually matter. "Daddy." He turned. Sophie stood in the doorway, her hair a wild mess, clutching the stuffed elephant Elena had given her the day before she died. "Hey baby, it's early. Go back to sleep." "Can't. Had a dream you were flying but forgot how and started falling." Marcus's chest tightened. "Come here." She padded over and he lifted her onto his lap, elephant and all. She was getting too big for this, but neither of them was ready to stop. "I'm not falling," he said quietly. "Are you flying?" "I don't know yet. Ask me tonight." Sophie tilted her head back to look at him. "Mrs. Chen says sometimes the scariest thing is when you realize you can fly, because then you have to decide if you're brave enough to try." Mrs. Chen is very wise. "She also says you look like you haven't eaten properly in 3 days, and I should make sure you have breakfast." Marcus laughed despite himself. "Mrs. Chen is very bossy. She cares about you. She says you remind her of her son, before he died." The laughter died in Marcus's throat. "I didn't know she had a son. He was sick, like Mommy. She says losing him taught her that love doesn't end when people leave. It just changes shape." Marcus held Sophie tighter. "When did you get so smart about sad things?" "I practice, in case you get sad again, so I know what to say." "Sophie, it's okay, Daddy. I know you're sad sometimes. About Mommy, about your job, about things I don't understand yet. But Mrs. Chen says sadness is just love that doesn't know where to go." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. That's exactly right. They sat in silence, drinking orange juice for Sophie and terrible coffee for Marcus, watching the sun come up through their single window. "Are you scared about today?" Sophie asked. "Terrified." "Good. Mrs. Peterson says being scared means you care. Only boring people aren't scared of important things." "Mrs. Peterson should write a book." "She's writing one. About teaching kids whose parents work too much. She asked if she could interview you." Marcus choked on his coffee. "What did you tell her?" "That you'd say yes because you're nice, and also you need more friends." "I have friends." Sophie gave him a look that said she didn't believe him. Mrs. Chen doesn't count as all your friends' daddy. What about Patricia from work? You've known her for 3 days. We're becoming friends. Okay, name one thing about her that isn't work. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. I'll get back to you on that. Sophie giggled, and it was the best sound Marcus had heard in days. At 7:45 a.m., Marcus stood outside Apex Systems, wearing the same shirt from yesterday and carrying a thermos of coffee Mrs. Chen had pressed into his hands with strict instructions to eat something besides anxiety. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. You've got this, Daddy. Love you to Mars and back. Another from Mrs. Chen. The princess is lucky to have you. Don't forget that. And one from Victoria Early. Me too. Too nervous to stay home. Meet me in my office. Marcus rode the elevator up his stomach in knots. The doors opened, and he found Victoria already there, looking somehow more exhausted and more determined than she had 6 hours ago. You didn't sleep either, she said. It wasn't a question. Sophie had nightmares. You. Grace called at midnight. Amy's going through a divorce. Grace wanted to know if love always ends. What did you tell her? That love changes shape but doesn't end. That sometimes the bravest thing is knowing when to reshape it. Victoria's voice caught. She asked if I still loved her grandpa. He died 15 years ago. I said yes. Then she asked why I never talk about him. Marcus waited. And I realized I don't have a good answer. I just stopped. Stopped talking about him. Stopped letting myself feel it. Stopped everything except work, because work can't abandon you. Victoria. I'm terrified, Marcus, not of the presentation, of what happens after. If we succeed, I can't keep hiding behind this job. I'll have to actually face all the things I've been running from. And if we fail, she laughed bitterly, then I'll have lost everything and still have to face them. Marcus moved to stand beside her at the window. The city was waking up below them, oblivious to their crisis. Elena used to say that the only way out is through, he said quietly. You can't go around grief or fear or change. You have to walk straight into it and trust you'll come out the other side. Did you come out the other side? I'm still walking, but Sophie's holding my hand so it's not as scary. Victoria turned to look at him. Who's holding your hand, Marcus, besides Sophie? The question landed harder than he expected. I don't know, he admitted. I've been so focused on being enough for her that I forgot I might need someone too. That's very male of you. And you being so focused on being enough for everyone that you forgot to need anyone is very female of you. They both smiled at that. We're a mess, Victoria said. We're human, Marcus corrected. Before Victoria could respond, Sarah burst in carrying 2 bags from a bakery Marcus couldn't afford to look at. Eat, she commanded. Both of you. You look like ghosts. Sarah, I don't have time. Admiral Patterson doesn't arrive until 10. You have time to eat a bagel, Victoria. Don't make me pull rank. You can't pull rank. I'm the CEO. I'm your friend. That outranks CEO. Victoria's eyes softened. When did that happen? About 20 years ago, when I stopped letting you pay me to tell you what you wanted to hear and started telling you what you needed to hear. Sarah set the bags down. Now eat before I call Amy and tell her you're self-destructing again. That's blackmail. That's love. Eat. Marcus watched this exchange with something like wonder. Sarah caught his eye and winked. You too, consultant. I brought enough for everyone. Priya arrived at 8:15 with her laptop and a manic energy that came from too much caffeine and not enough sleep. Patricia showed up 10 minutes later with printouts of every possible question the Admiral might ask. David came in at 8:30 carrying a portable whiteboard and muttering about backup plans. By 8:45 the conference room was full. 8 engineers, Victoria, Sarah, and Marcus. all of them running on fumes and hope. Status check. Victoria said, her voice steady despite everything. Where are we? Priya pulled up the latest simulation results. System is stable. Error rates are consistently 60+% better than our previous model. Processing speed is up across all metrics. It works, Victoria. It actually works. Backup systems. Victoria turned to David. Triple checked. If anything crashes, we can revert to stable mode in under 30 seconds. Patricia stepped forward. I've reviewed every technical spec the Defense Department sent. We meet or exceed every requirement. The only question is whether Admiral Patterson will accept Marcus's unconventional approach. All eyes turned to Marcus. What's our presentation strategy? Patricia asked. Marcus's mouth went dry. I assumed Victoria would present. No. Victoria's voice was firm. This is your solution. You need to present it. Victoria, I'm not qualified to. You're the most qualified person in this room. You see what the rest of us miss. That's what Patterson needs to see. He's a military admiral. He's going to take one look at me and ask where the real expert is. Sarah spoke up. Then you tell him the real expert dropped out of MIT to care for his dying wife and spent 13 years learning what actually matters. You tell him the truth, Marcus. That's what people respect. Marcus looked around the room. At Patricia, nodding. At Priya, giving him 2 thumbs up. At David's quiet confidence. At Victoria's barely concealed terror mixed with trust. I'm going to throw up, Marcus said. Not on the Admiral, Priya said cheerfully. Anywhere else is fine. Despite everything, Marcus laughed. At 9:45, Victoria's assistant called. Admiral Patterson is early. He's in the lobby. The room went electric with tension. Okay. Victoria stood smoothing her suit. Everyone remember, this isn't about impressing him with jargon. It's about showing him a solution that works. Marcus, you ready? No. Good, neither am I. Let's go. They filed into the main presentation room. Marcus's hands were shaking so badly he shoved them in his pockets. His phone buzzed. Another text from Sophie. Remember Daddy. Heroes aren't people who aren't scared. They're people who are scared but do it anyway. Admiral Patterson entered. Like weather systems, enter inevitable and impossible to ignore. Late 60s, silver haircut, military precise eyes that had seen too much to be impressed by corporate presentations. 2 junior officers flanked him, both carrying tablets and wearing expressions that gave nothing away. Ms. Chen. Patterson's handshake was brief and efficient. Thank you for accommodating my schedule. Thank you for giving us this opportunity, Admiral. Victoria gestured to the room. This is my team. Sarah Kim, VP of Operations. Patricia Holmes, Senior Systems Architect. And this is Marcus Hayes. He's the consultant who solved our algorithmic problem. Patterson's eyes swept over Marcus, took in the rumpled shirt, the worn shoes, the lack of expensive accessories. Mr. Hayes. The handshake was testing, firm enough to make a point. What institution are you with? No institution, sir. I freelance. MIT, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon. MIT briefly. 13 years ago. Patterson's eyebrow raised. You dropped out. Yes, sir. Personal circumstances. I see. The tone suggested he saw quite a bit, none of it particularly impressive. Well, let's see what a dropout has to teach the United States military about logistics optimization. The room went cold. Victoria's jaw tightened. Sarah looked ready to commit murder. But Marcus felt something unexpected. Relief. Because now he had nothing to prove. Patterson had already dismissed him, which meant Marcus could just be honest. Sir, can I tell you a story? Marcus asked. Patterson looked surprised. A story. It'll help explain the solution, if you'll indulge me. I'm here for the next hour, Mr. Hayes. Use it however you think best. Marcus moved to the whiteboard, picked up a marker, and began. I have an 8-year-old daughter named Sophie. Last year, she wanted to build a robot for the science fair. She asked me how robots learn. Patterson's expression was unreadable. So I told her robots learn like children, through trial and error, through feedback, through someone patient enough to let them fail and help them figure out why. Marcus drew a simple stick figure. But here's the problem. Most people teaching robots aren't teaching them like children. They're teaching them like soldiers. Patterson's attention sharpened. They're giving them rules, protocols, exact procedures for exact situations, which works great until the situation changes, until the data doesn't match the training, until real life does what it always does and throws chaos into perfect plans. Marcus drew a second figure. What we've designed is different. We taught the system to adapt, to recognize when its rules don't apply anymore, to improvise based on core principles instead of rigid protocols. That sounds like AI, Patterson said. We already use AI. You use AI that follows patterns. We built AI that recognizes when patterns break. There's a difference. Show me. For the next 30 minutes, Marcus walked Patterson through the system. Not with jargon or technical specifications, but with metaphors, with real-world scenarios, with the kind of explanation you'd give someone who needed to understand why, not just what. Patricia jumped in with technical specifications when needed. Priya demonstrated the simulation. David showed the backup systems. But Marcus held the thread, weaving their expertise into a story that made sense. Finally, Patterson held up his hand. Stop. I want to test something. Sir, give me a scenario. Something your old system couldn't handle. Marcus thought for a moment. Supply convoy in hostile territory. 3 trucks, medical supplies, 24-hour delivery window. Standard route is blocked by unexpected enemy movement. Run it through your old system. Priya pulled it up. The system calculated for 6 seconds, then spit out an error. No viable route found within parameters. Now run it through your new system. Marcus held his breath as Priya entered the same scenario. The new system calculated for 3 seconds, then displayed 3 alternative routes ranked by risk level and time efficiency, with real-time adjustment protocols for each. Patterson leaned forward. That fast, Priya confirmed. How is it adjusting for variables the old system couldn't process? Marcus stepped forward. Because we taught it to think like a field commander, not a computer. Field commanders don't have perfect information. They have gut instinct built on experience. That's what this system mimics: pattern recognition, sophisticated enough to know when to break patterns. Patterson was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to one of his officers. Pull up the Kandahar logistics failure from 2023. The officer typed rapidly. A complex scenario appeared on screen. Multiple supply lines, civilian populations, enemy activity, weather complications, equipment failures. This cost us 3 weeks and nearly a dozen lives, Patterson said quietly. Show me what your system would have done. Marcus felt the weight of those words. Lives. Real lives. Not just data points or success metrics. Priya loaded the scenario. The system processed, adjusted, recalculated. 30 seconds later, it displayed a solution that bypassed every major failure point of the actual mission. Patterson stared at the screen. How long did it take your team to generate this? The system generated it in 30 seconds, sir, Marcus said quietly. And how long would it have taken with your old system? Hours, maybe days, and it still might not have found a solution. Patterson turned to face Marcus directly. You did this, designed this system. I suggested the core approach. These engineers implemented it. It's a team effort, sir. Don't be modest, Mr. Hayes. Modesty doesn't save lives. Innovation does. Patterson's tone had shifted. No longer dismissive, now calculating. You said you dropped out of MIT. Why? Marcus hesitated. Victoria caught his eye and nodded slightly. My wife was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. We had a newborn daughter. No insurance. I dropped out to take care of them. She died. I raised Sophie alone. And you're working as what now? A consultant? A janitor, sir. At this company. I was cleaning the conference room when I saw the problem on the whiteboard. I fixed it. Ms. Chen caught me and gave me a chance to help." The room was completely silent. Patterson looked at Victoria. "You hired a janitor to solve a $100 million contract problem. I hired the person who could solve it. His job title seemed less important than his results." Patterson's expression was unreadable. Then slowly he smiled. "Ms. Chen, in 30 years of military service, I've learned one thing. The best solutions come from the least expected places. Usually from enlisted men who've been in the field, not officers who've been in the war room." He turned back to Marcus. "You've been in the field, Mr. Hayes. Raising a child alone, working multiple jobs, surviving. That gives you perspective most people in this room will never have." Marcus's throat tightened. Patterson continued. "The military is full of brilliant strategists who've never had to improvise dinner from whatever's in the cupboard. Who've never had to choose between gas money and groceries. Who've never had to make a system work when it wasn't designed for their situation." He paused. "That kind of thinking, adaptive, resourceful, creative under pressure, that's what saves lives in the field. And apparently that's what you've built here." "We built it, sir, as a team. Don't sell yourself short. I've sat through 100 presentations from people with more degrees than sense. You're the first person who explained AI to me like I'm human, not a checklist." Patterson turned to Victoria. "I'm approving the contract, with 2 conditions." Victoria's eyes went wide. "Name them." "First, Mr. Hayes stays on this project, not as a consultant, as the lead architect. Full-time position with appropriate compensation." Marcus felt the floor tilt. "Second, you implement a program to identify talent in unconventional places. I don't care about degrees. I care about results. Find me more people like Mr. Hayes." Victoria's smile was incandescent. "Done. Both conditions. Thank you, Admiral." "Don't thank me. Thank your janitor." Patterson extended his hand to Marcus. "You've done something remarkable here, son. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Marcus shook his hand, unable to speak. After Patterson and his officers left, the room exploded. Priya screamed and hugged David. Patricia wiped tears from her eyes. Sarah grabbed Victoria in a fierce embrace, and Marcus stood in the middle of it all, shell-shocked and overwhelmed. Victoria pulled away from Sarah and walked over to him. "Marcus Hayes, as of this moment, you are the lead systems architect at Apex Systems. Salary commensurate with your education and experience. Full benefits. And you never have to touch a mop again unless you want to." "Victoria, I can't." "Yes, you can. Because you just saved this company. And now you're going to help me rebuild it into something better." She paused. "Also, I'm giving you Fridays off, so you never miss another morning with Sophie." Marcus's eyes burned. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. And then go call your daughter and tell her the princess learned how to smile." Marcus pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Sophie answered on the first ring. "Daddy, did it work?" "Yeah, baby, it worked." "Did you fly?" Marcus looked around the room. At Patricia grinning at him. At Priya doing a victory dance. At Victoria wiping her eyes. At Sarah raising a coffee cup in salute. "Yeah," he said, his voice breaking. "I think I did. I knew you could. Heroes always do." And for the first time in 13 years, Marcus Hayes let himself believe she might be right. The celebration lasted approximately 7 minutes before reality set in. Marcus stood in the conference room, his phone still warm from talking to Sophie, watching his new colleagues toast with coffee and leftover pastries. Patricia had tears streaming down her face. David kept repeating, "We did it," like a mantra. Priya was already texting someone, probably her mother. And Victoria stood by the window, her shoulders finally relaxed, looking like a woman who'd been holding her breath for 40 years and finally remembered how to exhale. Sarah touched Marcus's arm. "You okay? You look like you might pass out." "I just got offered a job I'm not qualified for." "You just proved you're the only person qualified for it. There's a difference." "Sarah, I don't have a degree. I haven't worked in this field professionally in over a decade. I don't even own a suit. Good. We have too many people in suits around here. Not enough people who remember what real problems look like. She squeezed his arm. Marcus, do you know why Victoria took a chance on you? Because she was desperate. Because she recognized something in you that she'd lost in herself. The ability to see solutions instead of obstacles. To value results over credentials. To remember that all of this, she gestured at the office around them, only matters if it helps real people. Before Marcus could respond, Victoria's assistant appeared in the doorway, looking flustered. Ms. Chen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Richard Morrison is here. He's requesting an emergency board meeting. The room went cold. Victoria's expression hardened. Tell him I'm in a meeting. He says it's urgent. About unauthorized personnel and breach of contract protocol. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He means me. He means he's about to make a fool of himself, Patricia said sharply. Victoria, you want me to handle this? No. Victoria's voice was steel. I'll handle it. Marcus, come with me. Victoria, I don't think... That wasn't a request. You're my lead systems architect now. Richard wants to challenge that decision. He can say it to your face. They walked through the halls. Victoria's heels clicking like a countdown. Marcus felt every eye on them. Whispers followed in their wake. The janitor. The CEO's pet project. The desperate gamble. Richard waited in Victoria's office, sitting in her chair like he owned it. Two other board members stood behind him, both men in their 60s, wearing identical expressions of disapproval. Victoria. Richard didn't stand. We need to talk about your decision-making. Get out of my chair, Richard. I think you mean the company's chair, which you're about to lose if you continue making reckless choices. Victoria moved forward, her voice dropping to something dangerous. I said get out of my chair. Richard stood slowly, deliberately. I've called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning to discuss your leadership, or lack thereof. On what grounds? On the grounds that you hired an unqualified janitor to work on a classified Defense Department contract without board approval. That you've exposed this company to potential lawsuits, security breaches, and reputation damage. That I saved the company. Victoria interrupted. Admiral Patterson just approved our contract, with a 20% increase in value, because of Marcus's work. Richard's face flushed. That doesn't change the fact that you violated protocol, that you brought in outside personnel without proper vetting, that she recognized talent where you saw a job title, Marcus said quietly. Every head in the room turned to him. Richard's smile was cruel. The janitor speaks. Tell me, Mr. Hayes, what makes you think you belong in this room? I don't belong in this room, but I solved the problem none of you could. So maybe the question isn't whether I belong. Maybe it's whether any of you do. Richard's face went purple. You have no idea what you're talking about. This company was built by people with credentials, experience, proven track records. And it was saved by someone with none of those things. Which should tell you something about how much credentials actually matter when the stakes are real. You arrogant Richard. Victoria's voice cracked like a whip. Get out of my office. Take your emergency board meeting and your outdated ideas about what constitutes talent and get out. The board will hear about this. Good. Let them hear that I prioritize results over resumes. Let them hear that I hired someone who could actually solve problems instead of someone who looks good on paper. And let them hear that if they have a problem with that, they can find another CEO. One of the other board members, an older man with kind eyes, spoke up. Victoria, you know we respect your leadership, but Richard has a point about protocol. There are procedures for hiring senior personnel. Procedures that would have cost us this contract. Procedures that value paperwork over people. Procedures that are exactly why companies like ours fail to innovate. Victoria turned to face them all. I'm 58 years old. I've spent 40 years playing by rules designed to exclude people like Marcus. People who are brilliant but broke. People who had to choose between education and survival. People whose worth can't be measured by where they went to school or who they know. That's a lovely speech, Richard said coldly. But speeches don't run companies. Boards do. And tomorrow this board will decide whether your judgment can be trusted. He left his allies following. The door closed with a finality that felt like a threat. Victoria sank into her chair. I'm sorry, Marcus. This is going to get ugly. You should fire me before they force you to. Not a chance. Victoria, you just risked your entire career for someone you've known less than a week. That's not leadership. That's believing in something more important than my career. That's remembering why I started this company in the first place. She looked up at him. Do you know what I told the venture capitalists when I was trying to get funding 40 years ago? I told them I wanted to build a company where talent mattered more than pedigree, where innovation came from diverse perspectives, not cookie-cutter credentials, where people who'd been counted out could prove their worth. What did they say? They laughed at me, said I was naive, that the market doesn't reward idealism. She smiled bitterly. And I spent the next 4 decades proving them right, building exactly the kind of company they wanted. Exclusive, expensive, safe. Everything I said I wouldn't be. You were surviving. I was hiding. From failure. From vulnerability. From the terrifying possibility that maybe I'd become everything I used to despise. Victoria stood and walked to the window. When I saw you fixing that whiteboard, I didn't just see someone who could solve a problem. I saw someone who reminded me of who I used to be, before I learned to value safety over courage. Marcus moved to stand beside her. You're not safe now. No. And it's the most alive I've felt in 20 years. They stood in silence, watching the city move below them. Finally, Marcus said, What happens at the board meeting? Richard will argue I've lost my judgment. He'll present evidence of unauthorized hires, protocol violations, reckless decision-making. He'll paint a picture of a CEO who's cracking under pressure and making emotional choices instead of strategic ones. Is he wrong? Victoria looked at him sharply. Are you saying I made the wrong choice? I'm saying I'm terrified you made the right choice for the wrong reasons. That you hired me because you're trying to prove something to yourself, not because you actually trust me to do the job. The honesty landed between them like a stone in still water. Do you trust yourself to do the job? Victoria asked quietly. I don't know. 6 months ago, I was cleaning toilets. Now I'm supposed to architect AI systems for the military. That's not growth, that's whiplash. Sophie trusts you. Sophie's 8. She thinks I hung the moon. Admiral Patterson trusts you. And he's seen more bullshit in his career than both of us combined. Patterson trusted my solution. That doesn't mean he trusts me. Victoria turned to face him fully. Marcus, I'm going to ask you something, and I need absolute honesty. Okay. Do you want this job? Not because you need the money, or because you feel obligated to me. Do you actually want to do this work? Marcus thought about the last few days. The exhaustion, the terror. The moment when the simulation worked and he felt something click into place that had been missing for 13 years. Yeah, he said finally. I do, but I'm scared I'll fail, that I'll prove Richard right, that I'll let you down, and Sophie will see her dad lose everything again. You won't fail alone. That's what teams are for. Teams quit when leadership gets fired. Then I won't get fired. Victoria, I won't get fired because I'm going to walk into that board meeting tomorrow and remind them what this company is supposed to stand for. And if they don't like it, if they'd rather have someone like Richard running things, then I'll resign. And I'll start over somewhere else with people who actually believe in something. Marcus stared at her. You'd walk away from everything you built. I'd walk away from what it became, what I let it become. She smiled. Besides, I'm 58. According to Richard, I'm practically dead anyway. Might as well go out doing something that matters. That's the worst retirement plan I've ever heard. Good thing I'm not retiring. They both laughed, tension breaking like a fever. Sarah knocked and entered without waiting. "Sorry to interrupt, but Marcus, you have a visitor downstairs. Security says she's very insistent and also 8 years old." Marcus's heart stopped. "Sophie?" "Mrs. Chen brought her. Said something about making sure you remembered to eat lunch and also that the princess needed to see you one." Marcus ran. He found Sophie in the lobby clutching Mrs. Chen's hand and bouncing on her toes. When she saw him, she launched herself forward. "Daddy?" He caught her lifting her up even though she was really too big for this now. "Baby, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at school." "Half day, remember? And Mrs. Chen said we should bring you lunch because heroes need to eat too." Sophie pulled back to look at his face. "Did you really do it? Did you really save the company?" "Yeah, sweetheart, we did. Me and Victoria, and a whole team of people who are way smarter than me. But you were the one who solved it first." "Right." Marcus hesitated. Mrs. Chen gave him a look that said, "Don't you dare lie to this child." "Yeah, I guess I was." Sophie's smile was incandescent. "I knew it. I told everyone at school my dad was a hero, and they didn't believe me. But I knew." "Sophie, I'm not—" "Mrs. Peterson wants to interview you for her book, and Molly's dad called Molly's mom and apologized for being mean about what you do. And Mrs. Chen made you lunch with extra dumplings because she says you're too skinny." Mrs. Chen stepped forward, pressing a warm container into Marcus's hands. "You look terrible. When did you last eat?" "Yesterday, maybe." "Terrible. Sit. Eat. Sophie and I will wait." Marcus sat on one of the expensive lobby couches Sophie pressed against his side and ate dumplings while his daughter chattered about her morning. Mrs. Chen watched them with the satisfied expression of someone who'd raised 3 children and knew exactly when to push and when to let people be. "Mr. Hayes." They all looked up. Victoria stood there having followed him down. She'd never seen him like this, rumpled and exhausted with dumpling sauce on his shirt and his daughter tucked under his arm. Sophie's eyes went wide. "You're the princess, the sad one Daddy's been helping." Victoria's face did something complicated. Then she smiled a real smile that reached her eyes. "I prefer CEO, but princess works too. You must be Sophie. Daddy talks about you all the time. He says you're very smart and also very sad, and that he wants to help you remember how to be happy." Marcus wanted to sink through the floor. "Sophie, it's true, you said that last night when you thought I was sleeping." Victoria laughed, and it sounded like something that had been locked away finally breaking free. "Your dad is very wise and very kind. I'm lucky to know him. He's the best dad in the whole world, even when he was just a janitor. He was never just a janitor. He was always extraordinary. The job title didn't change that." Sophie studied Victoria seriously. "Are you less sad now because Daddy said helping you might take a while, but it would be worth it?" Victoria knelt down so she was eye level with Sophie. "You know what, I am less sad. Because your dad reminded me of something I forgot. That being strong doesn't mean being alone, and that sometimes the best help comes from the people you least expect. Like janitors. Like anyone who sees you for who you really are, not who you're pretending to be." Sophie nodded sagely. Then she pulled something from her backpack. A drawing naturally. This one showed 2 stick figures, one tall with a briefcase, one shorter with a mop standing on top of a building with a little girl between them holding both their hands. "I made this for you," Sophie said, handing it to Victoria. "It's you and Daddy and me. We're a team now." Victoria took the drawing with trembling hands. "Sophie, this is beautiful. But your dad and we're not. We're just colleagues." Mrs. Chen says grown-ups are very silly about admitting when they like each other. She says it's because they're scared of being hurt again. Mrs. Chen coughed delicately. "Sophie has been listening to too many of my stories, Mrs. Tao." "Chen tells the truth," Sophie said firmly. And the truth is, Daddy smiles different when he talks about you. Like how he smiles when he remembers Mommy. Not sad smile, happy sad smile. The kind that means something matters. Marcus couldn't breathe. Victoria looked at him, then at Sophie, then at the drawing in her hands. Your mom must have been very special, to raise someone as wise as you. She died when I was a baby, so Daddy's been my mom and dad both. He's very good at it, even when he's tired. I can see that. Do you have kids? A daughter, Amy, and a granddaughter your age, Grace. Does Grace like science? She loves it. Then we should be friends. Daddy always says smart girls should stick together. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Your daddy is right about a lot of things. They sat together in the lobby, Marcus and Sophie and Mrs. Chen and Victoria, eating dumplings and talking about nothing important and everything that mattered. Security guards smiled as they passed. Other employees whispered and pointed, but not cruelly. More like they were watching something unexpected and sweet. Finally, Mrs. Chen stood. Sophie, we should go. Your father has work to do. But I want to stay with Daddy. You can see him tonight. He'll come home. He always does. Sophie hugged Marcus fiercely. I'm proud of you, Daddy. Even if the mean man tries to make you leave, I'm still proud. Marcus's blood ran cold. Sophie, how do you... I heard Mrs. Chen talking to her friend on the phone about how some people don't think you should work here because you used to clean floors. Sophie pulled back to look at him seriously. But you know what? What? People who judge others by their job instead of their heart are the ones who shouldn't be in charge. That's what Mrs. Peterson says about bullies. Mrs. Peterson is very smart. So is Victoria. She wouldn't hire you if you weren't good enough. Right, Victoria? Victoria knelt down again. Sophie, your dad is one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. Anyone who can't see that is the one with the problem, not him. Then don't let them fire him, please. He worked really hard, and he's really good, and he deserves to be happy. I won't let anyone fire him, I promise. Sophie hugged Victoria, then spontaneously and fiercely. Victoria froze for a moment, then wrapped her arms around this tiny 8-year-old girl and held on like she was holding something precious. When they pulled apart, both had tears in their eyes. After Sophie and Mrs. Chen left, Marcus and Victoria stood in the lobby, neither quite knowing what to say. She's remarkable, Victoria said finally. She's everything Elena hoped she'd be. You're a good father, Marcus. I'm trying. Not always succeeding, but trying. Victoria touched his arm. That's all any of us can do. Try, and keep trying, and hope it's enough. Is it enough for the board meeting? I don't know. Richard has influence, and he's not wrong that I violated protocol. I could lose my job tomorrow. Then we'll both be unemployed. At least we'll have company. Victoria laughed. Sophie's right, you know, about the way you smile. Marcus felt his face heat. She's 8. She sees patterns that aren't there. Or she sees patterns adults are too scared to acknowledge. Victoria met his eyes. Marcus, I know this is complicated. I'm your boss. You just started. There are power dynamics and professional boundaries and 1,000 reasons why this would be inappropriate. Whatever this is, this connection, this feeling like I've known you longer than 4 days. Like you see parts of me I forgot existed. Marcus's heart hammered. Victoria, I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that Sophie's right. You do matter. Not because you solved a problem. Because you're you. Before Marcus could respond, Sarah appeared. Victoria, the board is asking for preliminary reports. They want documentation of Marcus's hiring process, security clearances, everything. They don't waste time. Richard's been busy. He's got 3 board members on his side already. How many do we need? 7 out of 12 for a vote of no confidence. Right now it's too close to call. Victoria straightened the CEO mask, sliding back into place. Then we have work to do. Marcus, I need you to document everything. Every step of your solution. Every decision point. Make it so airtight that even Richard can't find fault. And if he does anyway, then we fight. Together. The afternoon blurred into evening. Marcus worked alongside Patricia and Priya, documenting every line of code, every design decision, every test result. His hands cramped from typing, his eyes burned from staring at screens, but he didn't stop. Because stopping meant thinking about tomorrow, about board meetings and votes of confidence, and the very real possibility that he'd lose this chance as quickly as he'd gained it. At 8 p.m. his phone rang. Sophie. Daddy, when are you coming home? Soon, baby. I'm almost done. Mrs. Chen made dinner. She says you need to sleep. I will. I promise. Daddy? Her voice got small. Are you scared? Yeah, a little. That's okay. Being scared means you care. And caring is what makes you brave. Marcus closed his eyes. How did you get so wise? Good genes. Mommy was smart, and you're smart, so I'm double smart. He laughed through the exhaustion. That's pretty sound logic. I love you, Daddy. Even if you have to be a janitor again. Even if everything changes. I love you exactly as much as always. I love you too, baby. To Mars and back. To Mars and back and around the moon and through all the stars. After they hung up, Marcus sat in the quiet office, surrounded by the evidence of his work, and let himself feel it. The fear, the hope, the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Victoria found him there an hour later. Go home, Marcus. I'm almost done. Go home, sleep, be with Sophie. Tomorrow's going to be hard. You need to be rested. So do you. I'll sleep after the meeting, if I still have a job. Victoria. Marcus. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I don't regret hiring you. Even if it costs me everything, I don't regret it. Because you reminded me why I started this company. Why any of this matters. And why does it matter? Because people like you exist. People who are brilliant and kind and brave enough to keep trying, even when the world tells them they're not enough. If I lose my job defending that, then I'll have lost it for the right reason. Marcus stood and moved toward her. Not too close. Just close enough that she could see he meant what he said. You're not losing anything. Because I'm going to walk into that boardroom tomorrow and show them exactly why you made the right choice. Not with credentials or degrees or anything Richard thinks matters. With results. With truth. With the same thing that got me here in the first place. What's that? The courage to show up as exactly who I am, and trust that's enough. Victoria smiled, and in her eyes, Marcus saw something that looked like belief. Then let's show them tomorrow, she said. Together. Marcus went home that night and slept better than he had in years. Not because he wasn't scared, because he finally understood that being scared and showing up anyway was the only kind of brave that actually mattered. And tomorrow, he'd show them all just how brave a janitor could be.